You're used to struggling, Alice. Nobody looks at you. 2 years in minimum security won't kill you. We'll pay you when you get out. My father slid the dossier across his desk like he was ordering lunch, not demanding I go to prison. The folder was thick with tax fraud and embezzlement records crimes my sister Beatrice had committed. Beatrice sat on the sofa, crying fake tears into a handkerchief while my mother patted her back. They needed someone to take the fall so Beatrice could still marry into the wealthy Sterling family next month, and that someone was me. I didn't scream. I didn't fight back. I picked up the file, letting my hands tremble just enough to make them think I was broken. I need 24 hours, I whispered, to think. My father nodded, satisfied. He thought he was looking at a scared daughter. He didn't realize he was looking at the person who was about to take everything he owned. Have you ever realized your family would set you on fire just to keep their favorite warm? Tell me I'm not the only one in the comments. I drove away from my parents' house, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I didn't go straight home. I pulled over 2 blocks away, turned off the engine, and just breathed to understand why they chose me as the sacrifice. You have to understand the economy of my family. For 26 years, I was the spare part, the backup generator you keep in the basement and ignore until the power goes out. While I was sitting in my freezing 400 FT studio apartment, eating instant noodles and studying for my certification under a blanket to save on heating bills, Beatrice was living a life that didn't mathematically exist. I remember scrolling through Instagram last winter. There was Beatrice tagging herself at a 5-star wellness retreat in Bali. Company research trip. The caption read. I knew for a fact her company, a boutique consulting firm, had 0 clients, but my parents liked the photo. My mother commented, "So proud of my visionary. They funded that trip. They funded the Audi she crashed 3 months later. They funded the downtown loft she rented from a friend. They poured every ounce of their financial blood into keeping Beatrice inflated, terrified that if they stopped, she would collapse. And me? To Arthur and Martha, I was a data entry clerk, a quiet, unambitious disappointment who filed papers for $18 an hour. That was the story I let them believe. It was safer that way. In reality, I am a senior forensic auditor for one of the most aggressive litigation firms in the state. My job isn't typing numbers. It is hunting them. I track down hidden assets for high-stakes divorce cases and corporate bankruptcy fraud. I find the offshore accounts, the shell companies, and the phantom employees. I am a shark disguised in a beige cardigan. My parents didn't know this because they never asked. In 5 years, they had never once asked me, "Alice, what do you actually do at work?" It used to hurt. But sitting in my car that night, I realized their ignorance was my greatest weapon. For a long time, I wondered why they hated me. But as I watched the rain hit my windshield, I finally understood. It wasn't hate. It was economics. To my parents, success is a finite resource, like a pie with only so many slices. They truly believed that if they gave any support, attention, or love to me, they were stealing it from Beatrice. In their twisted worldview, for Beatrix to be the star, there had to be a void to contrast her against. I was the void. I was the insurance policy they kept in the dark, gathering dust, waiting for the day the star burned out. And that day had finally come. Beatrice had stolen, lied, and defrauded the government. The star was falling. So they went to the basement, dusted me off, and told me it was my turn to serve my purpose. They wanted me to step into the fire so she wouldn't get burned. They thought I was weak because I was quiet. They didn't realize that while they were building a house of cards for my sister, I was learning how to blow them down. I started the car. I wasn't going home to cry. I was going to work. I pulled into the empty parking lot of a 24-hour diner, the neon sign buzzing overhead like a dying insect. I didn't go inside. I didn't want coffee. I wanted the truth. I reached into my bag and pulled out my laptop. My hands were still shaking. a physical aftershock of the adrenaline from my father's study. I needed to know exactly what I was walking into. I needed to know if this tax fraud was a new development or if the rot went deeper. In my line of work, we have a saying, follow the silence. The things people don't talk about are usually where the money is hidden. And my parents had been very silent about my financial independence for years. They never asked why I didn't buy a new car. They never asked why I still rented. I tethered the laptop to my phone's hotspot and navigated to the Consumer Credit Bureau portal. I wasn't hacking. I wasn't using any special software. I was just doing what any responsible adult should do, checking my own credit report. I typed in my social security number, my date of birth, and answered the security questions. Enter. The screen refreshed and the blue light illuminated the cab of my car. I stopped breathing. I expected to see a blank slate, maybe a few student loans, my small car payments, my rent history. Instead, I was looking at a financial crime scene. My credit score was in the low 500s, but it was the open accounts tab that made my stomach turn over. There were 3 credit cards, all maxed out with a combined balance of $45,000. There was a business loan for a Bayist Consulting LLC, Beatrix failed fashion startup taken out 5 years ago. The principal amount was $50,000. It was currently in default. I clicked on the contact information associated with the accounts. I needed to be sure. I needed to see it in black and white. And there it was, the recovery email address for every single fraudulent account. Arthur, whitfordigmail.com. I sat back against the headrest, the air leaving my lungs in a rush. They hadn't just asked me to take the fall tonight. They had stolen my identity 5 years ago when I was 21, struggling to pay for my forensic accounting textbooks, eating toast for dinner. My father was using my name to fund Beatrix vanity projects when they told me they couldn't afford to help me with rent. They were actively ruining my credit to keep her afloat. The realization washed over me, cold and absolute. I wasn't a daughter to them. I wasn't even a person. I was a resource, a line of credit to be maxed out and discarded. They had been drowning me for years so she could keep her head above water. I looked at my hands. They had stopped trembling. Strange, isn't it? You think that finding out your parents are criminals who betrayed you would break you. You think you'd cry. But I didn't cry. The tears evaporated, replaced by a clarity so sharp it felt like a knife edge. The emotional bond I had been clinging to, that desperate childish hope that if I just sacrificed enough, they would finally love me, snapped. It was gone. I felt lighter. I felt dangerous. I wasn't the scared girl in the study anymore. I was the auditor. And I had just found the discrepancy that was going to bring the whole company down. I closed the laptop. I didn't go home to sleep. I had work to do. If they wanted me to own their crimes, fine. I was going to own everything else too. I went into the office early, not my actual office. I couldn't risk anyone seeing me on the company's server running personal searches. I went to my war room, a 24-hour co-working space I used for freelance consults. I didn't sleep. I audited. I pulled the filings for Based Consulting, the company attached to the defaulted loan in my name because my social security number was listed as the guarantor. I had legal access to the account history. I downloaded 5 years of statements and started building the flowchart. It wasn't just incompetence. It was looting. Beatrice had raised $250,000 from angel investors, friends of the Sterling family, mostly promising a revolutionary fashion app that didn't exist. The money hit the business account and immediately bounced out. I traced the transfers. $10,000 to a luxury travel agency, $5,000 to a Porsche dealership, $15,000 to a contractor for office renovations, which, upon a quick cross-reference with property records, turned out to be the address of my parents' house. They weren't just covering for Beatrice's mistakes. They were on the payroll. Arthur had been skimming off the top of his daughter's fraud to pay for his country club dues and premium cigars. They were a closed ecosystem of greed, feeding off each other and using my credit score as the fertilizer. I sat back, staring at the glowing screen. The sun was coming up, painting the city in gray light. The legal part of my brain knew I was in trouble. If I went to the FBI right now, the paper trail would be messy. My name was on the loans. My credit was the foundation. Arthur would claim I was the mastermind, the silent partner, and that he and Beatrice were just victims of my schemes. With their social standing and my lack of resources, a jury might just believe them. I needed leverage. I needed something that would force them to destroy themselves. I needed them to hand me the knife. I looked at the asset column on my parents' ledger. It was short. They had drained their retirement accounts. They had maxed their own credit cards. The only thing they had left, the only thing of real value, was the house. A stunning 4-bedroom colonial in the historic district, appraised at $1.5 million. It was their pride, their status symbol, the stage for all their performances of the perfect family. And because they had bought it 20 years ago, it was almost paid off. I opened a new browser tab. I wasn't going to report them. Not yet. I was going to liquidate them. I navigated to the Secretary of State website for Wyoming. Wyoming is special. It's one of the few states that allows for a completely anonymous LLC. You don't have to list the members. You don't have to list the managers. It is a black box. I registered a new company, Nemesis Holdings LLC. I paid the expedited filing fee. Then I drafted a document. It was a quick claim deed, a legal instrument used to transfer property quickly, usually between family members. It stated that Arthur and Martha Whitford were transferring 100% of their property rights to Nemesis Holdings LLC for the sum of $10. I printed the document. It looked innocent, just 3 pieces of paper that would turn my parents into tenants in their own home. Next, I scrolled through my contacts until I found Sarah. Sarah was a mobile notary I'd used for a few high-end foreclosures. She was professional, discreet, and expensive. "Sarah," I said when she picked up, "I have a signing tonight at my father's house. It's sensitive asset protection structure. I need you to be there at 8 Oz p.m. sharp. Don't ask questions. Just verify IDs and stamp the papers. Standard rate plus rush fee," she asked. "Double it," I said. "And Sarah?" "Once the papers are signed, leave immediately." "Understood." I hung up and looked at the stack of papers on the desk. The fraud evidence in one pile, the trap in the other. They wanted me to save them. They wanted me to fix the mess Beatrice made so they could keep pretending to be royalty. I grabbed my bag. I was going to give them exactly what they wanted. I was going to save them, and it was going to cost them everything they had. I walked back into my parents' house at exactly 7:55. The mood in the study had shifted from aggressive to impatient. They weren't worried about me. They were worried about the timeline. Beatrice was pacing, checking her phone every 30 seconds, probably terrified that her fiancé would text before she had a clean record. I played my part perfectly. I had spent 26 years learning how to be the person they wanted me to be, scared, submissive, and helpful. I hunched my shoulders. I let my voice shake. "I'll do it," I said, looking at the floor. "I'll take the fall." Martha let out a breath that sounded like a hiss of relief. "Good. We knew you'd do the right thing." But I raised my head, widening my eyes in panic. "There's a problem." I spoke to a lawyer friend just hypothetically. Arthur's eyes narrowed. "What problem?" "The sentencing guidelines." I lied. The lie tasted sweet. "Because the fraud amount is over $200,000. The feds don't just look for jail time, they look for restitution. They seize assets connected to the beneficiary of the fraud." I pointed a trembling finger at Beatrice, then at the room around us. "They trace the money. They know it paid for renovations here. If I plead guilty, they will come for this house, Dad. They will seize it to pay back the investors." The color drained from Arthur's face. The house was his idol. He loved it more than his children, probably more than his wife. "They can't do that," he sputtered. They can, I insisted, unless we hide it. Tonight, I pulled the folder from my bag. My hands were steady now, but they didn't notice. They were too busy staring at the solution. I was offering. I had these drawn up. It's an asset protection strategy. We transfer the deed immediately into an anonymous holding company, Nemesis Holdings LLC. If the house isn't in your name when the investigation starts, they can't freeze it. It's a blind trust. Arthur snatched the papers. He scanned them with a desperate intensity of a man watching his life flash before his eyes. He stopped at the signature page. Wait, he growled. This lists you as the sole managing member. My name isn't on the ownership. This was the moment, the turn. If I flinched, I lost. That's exactly why it has to be me, I pleaded. If your name is on anything, the FBI finds it instantly. I'm the straw man. I hold the asset until the heat dies down. You can force me to sign it back whenever you want. I always do what you ask. He didn't see a threat, only the expendable daughter. He laughed, grabbed his pen, and signed. I texted Sarah. She arrived within seconds, stamped the quitclaim deed, and left with an envelope of untraceable cash. When her car disappeared down the driveway, the room relaxed. The panic evaporated into arrogance. You were useful for once, my father sneered. My mother poured wine like she hadn't just committed fraud. Stop crying. You know your place, she said coldly. Beatrix is the flower. You're the dirt. Your job is to bury yourself so she can bloom. Go to the police tomorrow. We have a wedding to plan. That word dirt ended everything. I stopped crying, set my phone on the desk, and showed them the recording timer still running. I'm not going to the police, I said calmly. And neither is Beatrice. They stared as I explained the truth. The house now belonged to Nemesis Holdings, and I owned Nemesis Holdings. My father lunged, then froze when I mentioned unclean hands. The recording captured their admission of fraud. Suing me would mean confessing to a felony. He collapsed. You have 7 days to vacate my property, I said. Missed the deadline. And this recording goes to the FBI and the Sterling family. 3 months later, I sat in the study I now owned. My parents were broke. My sister's wedding canceled. Their reputation destroyed. They were right about one thing. Flowers need dirt. They just forgot the dirt owns the ground. And now so did